What is up, guys? Zack Scott here with a special video. Today is the 10th anniversary of the original Plants vs. Zombies, a game that spawned an entire franchise, and anyone who watches my channel knows I play a ton of PvZ games. It is my honor to interview the creator of Plants vs. Zombies, George Fan himself, and as we talk, I will have footage of the first Plants vs. Zombies playing for you guys to watch. Okay, George Fan, thank you so much for choosing to do this interview with me. It's a real pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is super special. It's Plants vs. Zombies 10-year anniversary. I can't believe it's been that long, but I'm really glad to be here and be doing this with you. Like, the stuff you've done for Plants vs. Zombies is just like so awesome. And yeah, what better place to do something cool like this?
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's a real treat. It's a real pleasure on my end. And yeah, like you said, it's been 10 years. And I mean, May 5th.
Yep.
2009. So,
Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo. And, you know, looking back on the game and, you know, all the work that you put into it, you know, what are you most proud of?
Okay, so like, if we're talking about like one thing.
Or a group of things.
It's mostly like, as a kind of like, I've always been like a creative type. And I think a lot of us, what we're looking for is just like crafting something that, you know, has kind of like an impact on the world, like that can kind of like people can look back and say, oh, okay, that left some kind of legacy. And I feel so kind of fortunate that I was able to make something that I really feel like did that. Like, it's like, I never imagined I would ever make something like with, you know, that this many people played, or this, you know, that gave this many people like moments of joy. Like, that is just,
yeah.
I think what I'm most proud of is just that as a whole. Like, I could just live the rest of my life now and just be completely happy just having done that.
Well, yeah, and you pulled it off, and I mean, it's basically a huge franchise now. It's not just one game anymore. It's a huge franchise, and, you know, who knows how long that can go on. That can go on, you know, another 50 years, 100 years, who knows? So,
Plants vs. Zombies 18.
18. They just keep with the numbering system. They just 18, like Jaws and Back to the Future, or whatever number they're up to. Jaws 19 or whatever.
Yep. Or Final Fantasy.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's true. And it was not just the same game, but, you know, different genres, subgenres of the game. You know. Yeah,
I would love to see it branch off into even more genres of games. Like, we need a Plants vs. Zombies RPG at some point.
Ooh, that would be cool.
We need a Netflix series.
Yeah. So let's get this going. Hopefully some Netflix executives are listening right now.
Yeah, EA PopCap, get on that.
Well, so I mean, I've read a bunch of different articles and interview stuff and Wikipedia, you know, but like for someone who's kind of new to Plants vs. Zombies or who hasn't read that kind of stuff, you know, what inspired you to create the game? What inspired you to create Plants vs. Zombies?
Yeah, it really came from like, it wasn't like a one moment, I've got this idea for this game. It kind of like, really it evolved over maybe like half a year to a year. So on one front, you know, I've always been a huge Blizzard fan, and I play all their games, and I was playing Warcraft 3, and I played the main game, and then I kind of like branched off into playing some of the custom maps, right? And then one category of custom map was, I don't know if you've played any of these back in the day either, like they were just like tower defense custom maps. That's kind of where I first like encountered tower defense, and I'm like, I played a bunch of those, and I found myself like just continuing to go back and like, why is this so engrossing? Like, why does this feel like, it took me back to, you know, that feeling I had when I was like a kid, and then a bunch of us kids would like make these pillow forts and wait for the parents to come home, and we'd like ambush them, and just like that whole like holding up and getting ready to defend against, you know, the onslaught kind of feeling. Like, I think that's what is the like whole like primal like thing, the draw of tower defense in some ways. Yeah. So anyway, I was playing that, and that kind of like planted a seed in my mind about oh, this kind of gameplay is cool. So the first game I made with PopCap was in Aquarium, and some of the ideas I had for the sequel were like you would have two fish tanks. One would be kind of like your economy, and one would kind of be like a defense tank. Like it would you would make fish in there that kind of would. So for those of you that don't know, Insane Aquarium is basically a game where you raise fish and they start pooping money, and you click on the money and you use that to buy more fish, and then that's your economy, and then aliens come and attack your fish tank. So my idea for the sequel was like it would take it into an even a wider scale, because in the first one only 1 or 2 aliens ever attacked you, but it would just be like armies of aliens coming at you, and you can kind of see where this is going, where you would make multiple like archer fish that would like shoot at them kind of. So there was that kind of like seed that was planted as well. And then kind of like a third angle was I just kind of was prototyping like kind of like a gardening game.
Oh yeah? So
you would kind of like, plant seeds in the ground and then tend to them, water them, and then they would grow and they would get bigger. And then of course I had that tower defense kind of like, oh, I want to kind of make a tower defense game. So I made the aliens from Insane Aquarium attack your garden, and then your plants would kind of lob cabbages at them. Does that sound familiar at all?
Yeah, that does sound familiar.
Yeah, and so it was you were planting a garden, you were lobbing cabbages at aliens there. And two things. One, the first thing was it was just kind of like it felt kind of tedious to tend to your plants while like also fending off the aliens. It was just kind of like, I thought in my head that might be a cool combination, but when I tried it out, it just worked a lot better if you just put the plant in the ground and they just started shooting, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that happened was I placed some value in originality. So I was working in like the casual games industry, and right around that time, like a bajillion gardening games came out. Just like, and so I thought, oh, my game is just going to be lost in the whole like ocean of garden games, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I need a hook. What's my hook? So then I was like, bye aliens, hello zombies, because no one's going to make a zombie fighting gardening game. And so that's when the zombies came in, and pretty much when Plants vs. Zombie was born. And I guess I should say a little bit about why it's like, why is it Plants versus Zombies too, right? Like,
yeah,
part of the reason it's Plants is I put a lot of value in keeping games casual, so like a lot of people can pick up and play, like a wide range of people. I was loving tower defense, but a lot of those games at the time had it, you like scrolling around between like a mini map, and then your map would encompass, more than one screen. And my goal kind of was like, I want to make a tower defense game that plays on a single screen, so you don't have to introduce any like scrolling controls at all. The goal is it has to be on one screen, so I need an enemy that, if it was Plants versus Cheetahs, the cheetahs would just like sprint up to you, and you'd have no time to strategize where to place your towers or plants or whatever, right? And then the game would be a lot worse. But I needed something that people know moves really slowly. So it was either Plants. I didn't seriously think about this, but it was either Plants versus Snails or Plants versus Zombies, which I guess snails and plants are mortal enemies, right?
Oh, that's true.
That would have made sense, but it's not as whimsical as I want.
Yeah, it doesn't quite grab the attention.
Yeah, it's just, all right, Plants vs. Snails, that battle is so old, right? Everyone's seen that.
Everyone knows about that.
Right. It's a classic battle. It's been done to so much. But Zombies at the time, yeah, that had never been done. I just think there's also something like, there's a humorous angle to Zombies. Like, I know they're scary, but there's like a humorous element in like at least classic zombies. Like, why are you scared of them? Like one classic zombie isn't really scary to me, because how could it ever get you if it just shambles at you incredibly slowly? Like, you just have to like briskly walk away from it.
Yeah.
And then you're fine. I guess it's only when they come at you in like droves that they're a threat. But there was always something funny about like a single zombie shouldn't be scary, because you just slightly fastly walk away and you're fine, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the zombie side. And then, right, so going back, why is it plants? It's plants because, right, like I said, I was playing a bunch of tower defense, and then I played this one tower defense game. Okay, so first of all, I like injecting my games with character, and so the typical towers, like it's a wooden building that shoots arrows, is just a little bit drab to me.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I wanted to do something more like with more character than that. So I was on the lookout for what that could be. And then I played a game where it was a tower defense game. I'm not going to name any names here, but
Okay.
it was a tower defense game. I'm sure it's fine if I did anyway. Maybe astute listeners can pick up what this game is. It was you would place these like barracks, right?
Okay.
And the barracks would spawn these little cartoon knights or soldiers, right? And these orcs would come on a trail, and your knight would go up, whack their sword at the orc like a few times, and then when the orc got out of range, it would go back to the barrack. But like that made me wonder, like, why didn't you follow the orc and keep hitting it then, right? Kind of like, why did you have to return to your barracks?
Yeah.
So it really wanted me to like two things. One, to give like something where the towers would have personality, and two, like try to find something where it was obvious why they couldn't move. So what's something that we all know can't move?
Yeah,
it's plants, because they're literally planted, right? And so, yeah, that's why it's not just I picked two random things out of a hat, and I was like, oh, I picked plants and I picked zombies. I'm gonna make this game now. It was there was a lot of thought that went into both sides of what this eternal conflict was.
Well, that's interesting because it seems like you started with fish and aliens, and then they just for the reasons you just stated, they transformed into plants and zombies.
Yeah, both sides actually transformed, and thus we have a whole new game.
So when you were talking about working on a gardening game, and you're talking about you plant the plants and then they grow, that made me think of the Zen Garden. And I was wondering how much of the Zen Garden is inspired from that concept.
Right, the Zen Garden, it's not directly inspired by that, but it is like kind of like catering to the same kind of gameplay. It's like supposed to be like there's something relaxing and like meditative about like tending to like a plant, and I think the Zen Garden was just supposed to kind of let you in a really safe setting, just kind of like water your plants, see them over time grow up or grow bigger, I guess. And so, right, kind of like catering to the same, like, I guess, emotion or just like satisfaction of seeing, tending to something, watching it grow, feeling like, oh, I helped that happen, and at the same time just feeling so relaxed, like, Zen Garden music in Plants vs. Zombies, super relaxing. So it's supposed to like, highlight that. As far as why the Zen Garden was made was more like we had adventure mode, and then we basically kind of needed, it was kind of like one of, a few pillars that held up the game together that kind of like gelled with all of the rest of the game that was going on. So we had like adventure mode, and then we had things to buy in the shop. We had some like extra like mini games, right? And then just like we kind of felt like there needed to be something like the Zen Garden to sort of tie everything together, to kind of give you a place to go back to that kind of like passively made you gold, that you could start saving up to buy stuff in the in Crazy Dave's shop. And so I was really glad to give it like that Zen Garden fit,
Yeah, I do, and because I was looking at my Steam profile to see like when I actually bought Plants vs. Zombies, and I bought it I think in June of 2009. And
you were you were an early adopter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was surprised to see that I had 117 hours, and then I was like, oh, you know what? A lot of that was probably the Zen Garden.
Yeah.
Because
right.
like if I was doing homework or whatever I was doing at the time, I don't think I was in school at the time. Whatever I was doing, reading or lounging around the house, I would have the Zen Garden like up. When I couldn't actively be playing, it'd be kind of like a background task.
Right. That's how we artificially inflate your number of played hours, because you just leave it on. watch your snail pick up coins.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Bit of trivia: that snail was it's a cameo from Insane Aquarium, that other game I was talking about. It's one of the first little pets you can get in that game. So
maybe he would have been in Plants vs. Snails had you made that instead.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. He was a good snail, so he would have been like the one good snail that that kind of defected from all the evil enemy snails.
So working for the plants now.
Yeah. Right. What could have been?
When you're talking about like all the work that kind of went into, facilitating this game and coming up with all the ideas and how you kind of went from maybe working on a sequel to the previous game to a whole new game, how much time do you think total was spent developing this game?
So we have it at 3.5 years, which is, I think that, I remember back then when I would tell that to people, that would always seem surprising to them, because it does, in some ways, Plants vs. Zombies doesn't feel, it's not a AAA game, right? In the game scale of things, it's like not a giant game, right? However, it was just, a core team of, me, the designer, an artist, and a programmer. And so there's something about the way we do things at PopCap where there's a lot of emphasis put on polish. Similar to another company I was a big fan of, which is Blizzard, right? Like they're all about like polishing a game. We'll release it when it's done. So what actually happened was for the entire, so if we wanted to, we could have released Plants vs. Zombies 2.5 years into it. Like we basically spent a whole year just like polishing the game, adding, I think some of the things we added, I think that the Zen Garden got added in there. Like the Zen Garden I think is important, but the game doesn't need to ship with it. Like,
yeah,
we had adventure mode done, we had a bunch of mini games done already, and we could have said, okay, this game is great, we'll throw it out there now. But I think what pushed Plants vs. Zombies like to the top was that extra year we spent on it. Plants vs. Zombies, I've heard people say, oh, it feels like a really generous game because there's all these, like, there's so many mini games, there's so many extra ways to play, and a lot of that was just a result of that one extra year we spent on it. Like,
when you say we, like, who else was working on this game with you?
So it was me and an awesome artist named Rich Werner. Shout out to Rich Werner. Also the artist for, I'm gonna do a quick plug.
Okay.
The new game I've made, OCTOGEDDON, same artist, so you'll notice the art style is really, really awesome and similar. Yeah, Rich is just great to work with. I would make a million more games with him.
Please.
And
please do.
Yeah. And right, I think he did an amazing job on Plants vs. Zombies. It actually, like, so we were trying something out on it that was really new at the time, which was like a skeletal animation system. It's kind of like Rich learned Flash for this project, and he I feel like he picked it up really quickly, learned how to animate all these zombies, and yeah, I just think Rich did a great job. The other main person we worked with was a programmer named Todd Semple. He is the most ace programmer I can think of. Just like any issues that we had with the game, he would just like he would. What was really unique about Todd was like how much care he put into like, here, I'll make tools to make you and Rich's job easier. I want to facilitate, like, I don't want any like technical things to get in the way of like what you two do. So I'm going to put all this extra effort into making this all super easy for you, like taking care of all the stuff that might hinder your creativity. So yeah, that was just something that was really special about Todd. And yeah, I'd also love to work with Todd again. But yeah, that was a really core team. Really, I knew Todd from my Blizzard days, and I feel like we kind of got along then. So I had a sense, it'd be pretty cool to work with Todd. And so right when it came time to like, I had the prototype for Plants vs. Zombies. I was like, they're saying, well, we need to get like a full-time programmer on this. So I was like, Todd Semple, that's who I want to. Yeah, that's my man. And so right. It was just, mainly the three of us. Other people that were involved, like, the soundtrack is super awesome. That's the result of very talented Laura Shigihara. Like, one thing I was kind of noticing at the time was like, growing up, just like every video game, almost every video game I played, I would look forward to listening to the music in it. Like, I feel like I would stop playing and still be like humming the tunes, like in a good way, right? Like,
oh yeah.
And I feel like around the time Plants vs. Zombies came out, there was just like less and less of that. So I was so super glad to like release a game like I was proud of in a lot of ways. One of which was like, I feel like our soundtrack was super catchy, had great melodies. The end credit song is just super amazing, right? Like, so yeah, I feel like she really did an awesome job on making the game super well-rounded and awesome. And then I would just say in general, like everyone at Pop, like now that I've like, especially now that I've, before PopCap and before Plants vs. Zombies and now after Plants vs. Zombies, I realize, especially now, how unique of a time that was. I feel like what I can really thank PopCap for was making the whole process of creating Plants vs. Zombies so smooth for everyone, for that core team. Compared to any other project I worked on, just like so few issues. Like, we were just really given the tools to, just here, go make the best game you can. We will support you. We will like, you can ask us for feedback. Like, we'll give you, like if you're stuck on something, we'll give you like these great suggestions. And it was a really special time, I feel like. And so I think we were all having fun making it. So I think that shows too. In some ways, like, I feel like my roots or my core is like very indie minded. Like, I just, in general, I don't think I do all that well in big corporations. And so it was really nice. Like, this was basically an indie studio. So I feel like the environment, totally. So I feel like the environment really everything lined up. The environment was just what I needed to, do my awesomest work.
Switching tracks a little bit and kind of going, forward more towards not so much, what went into the game, but kind of what happened after the game. A lot of people think of Plants vs. Zombies now as a mobile title, but like I said, I checked Steam. I played it on my PC, and of course I played it on mobile as well. But thinking back, I think most of my memories are now mobile playing Plants vs. Zombies, both 1 and 2, on mobile platforms, and I kind of consider it like one of the first great, iPhone games, and then I keep forgetting, like, oh yeah, it was a PC game first.
Right. I don't think you're alone. I think, I mean, I am in that camp too. I think of Plants vs. Zombies as a primarily mobile title now too. Like, and I think that's where like a lot of people forget, like, it didn't come out on mobile first. So one interesting fact is, right, I mentioned earlier it took 3.5 years. Well, guess what? Like, when we started it, we didn't even know about the iPhone. Like, the iPhone didn't exist when we started making this game. So it's like, if you had to ask me, like, form factor wise, what is the perfect platform for Plants vs. Zombies? Of course, it's mobile. Like, being able to, take your phone out of your pocket and just, crush a few zombies and then, put it away. Like, and it's just like the touchscreen interface just like meshes so well with it all. Like, it feels so great to like, drag a plant over and just let go of your tap and then just like let it drop and just start watching it like shoot peas at zombies. It's perfect. It seems like we had it all planned out. Like, we're like, oh yeah, we're making a game for this new iPhone that's coming out. That's not really the case. Like, we were we were making the game like for PC first and foremost. While near the end of the process, we like got wind of, oh, there's this really cool thing called the iPhone coming out. And right, we were part of that first wave of the ones I can think of were, do you remember Doodle Jump? Doodle Jump was one of that first wave.
Yeah.
And then Angry Birds was right there with us too.
Yeah.
And I feel like, so 10 years later, here's kind of what I noticed. Me and Rich made a new game called OCTOGEDDON, right? And when people look at the art style for that, they go, this looks like a mobile game, right? Because OCTOGEDDON came out also on PC. And I'm not really sure what to think of it, because I feel like Rich and me, like coming out with Plants vs. Zombies and just kind of defining that art style, we kind of were among that first wave of mobile games. And so we kind of like set the art style of, we were part of what set the art style of what makes what a mobile game looks like. It's really weird, like many years later, say, oh, that looks like a mobile game. No, that looks like a Rich Werner game, kind of, right? Like in some ways, like it was another like very fortunate thing for us to like just be at the right place at the right time. People just started sending me these really cool clips of like celebrities going on like Jimmy Fallon and saying like, oh yeah, I played Plants vs. Zombies, you know, sitting on the toilet till my legs were numb. And that was just a result of like, I think, right, actors and actresses at the time were just like very big on the iPad when it first came out. And there were no other good games on the iPad, right? Like we were basically the first notable good game on the iPad. So
I'd say so, yeah.
That's really all they had to play. And so, right, it was just like we were just very fortunate, or maybe there are some like just mad geniuses at PopCap, one of the two, right? Like, but yeah, super grateful like for all this to go down the way it did.
But you were able to get in early and set the standard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, other than like talk show mentions and things like that, I mean, just overall, both in mobile titles and the mobile industry, but then expanding further out throughout the rest of the industry and other industries, has there been any other references to Plants vs. Zombies that have like really surprised you?
So I'm up in Seattle these days, and there's an arcade here called Round One. Shout out to Round One. It's a pretty awesome arcade. If you're in the area, you should check it out. First of all, they do have a physical Plants vs. Zombies arcade machine.
Oh, okay.
Where you hold like this, plastic pea shooter head.
Oh yeah.
And you're basically aiming at these. Right? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I played that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I played it. Right. It's just like you sit on there's like a little stool with a sunflower face on. You sit on. Yeah. It's just really cool to see stuff like that. But anyway, this is a really weird kind of sighting. At the same arcade, there's another shooter game where you hold like a plastic, basically a pea shooter's head. This one's called Iceman.
Iceman.
And it's a bootleg knockoff Plants vs. Zombies shooter game. And so Iceman, the title screen has like a picture of basically a snow pea. I get the ice. I'm not sure where the Iceman comes from though.
Yeah.
So it's just, I guess I should have mixed feelings about it, but it's just all hilarious to me. I get a kick out of like knockoff kind of culture, like just like seeing like shoddily made kind of like, here's a Bart Simpson t-shirt with everything spelled kind of wrong or whatever, right? Like a super amusing thing I heard, this is like super memorable to me, and it's another one of those things I don't know how I should feel about it, but it's that have you heard of this? Like, so in the Philippines, there was a jail guard, right? And he's supposed to be doing his job, making sure no one the prisoners don't get out of jail.
Okay.
And he's sitting there and he's got his phone, and he's guess what he's playing on his phone? He's playing Plants vs. Zombies, right?
Yeah.
And he gets so engrossed by this game, by my game, that one of the prisoners reaches behind him and sneaks the keys off of his belt. And he basically just has no idea, because Plants vs. Zombies is just that engrossing, right? Yeah, the prisoner does that, releases like himself and 3 friends out of jail, and so there's like these 4 prisoners running loose because of Plants vs. Zombies. So on one hand, I feel awesome about that. On one hand, I feel very bummed about that. So it's very, I guess I can feel better because I also heard that they caught them all, they rounded them all up, brought them back. But it's just like, it just seems like a scene out of a cartoon, almost like, oh, the guard's like not looking, and you just sneak the keys off of his back or whatever, right? So yeah, that is one of like the best Plants vs. Zombies related stories I've heard.
And that's all due to you.
It's all thanks to me. It's all
they broke out of jail.
Right. Jailbreaks courtesy of George Fan. Thank you very much.
Wow. So not only has it been influential in the culture, but it's grown into a huge franchise 10 years later, multiple platforms, multiple genres even. It's not just I mean, they have tower defense roots, but we have like a shooter game. We have Plants vs., which is Garden Warfare. We have Plants vs. Zombies Heroes, which is kind of like a card type game. How cool is that? I mean, like, what are your thoughts on the success of that? I mean, like, how it's expanded so much, how it's kind of like grown even to the point where you mentioned where like it's being knockoff arcade games are stealing from it.
Yep, you made it when you get a knockoff arcade game called Iceman. That's when you know.
I googled the picture of it, and there's like this like liquid looking pea shooter with pirate frog.
Oh yeah, that one was really cool because it actually It won up the real Plants vs. Zombies machine because this actually shot water at the screen.
Oh wow!
Kind of for no reason at all, other than it just like it didn't actually sense if the water hit the screen or not. But it was like a water gun too. So props to the Iceman team.
Yeah, maybe they're hiring.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, like you were asking earlier, it's unreal. Like I mean. I feel super privileged. I feel like not many people get to be in this situation, so I would love to put into words how it feels so people can kind of understand. But it's really hard to put into words for me. I'm like, I just feel really grateful, and it's like, it just feels unreal. Like I kind of like Plants vs. Zombies is kind of unique in that, like, especially at some point, it was like a very like. In the same lines of like Angry Birds, something like Angry Birds, it's more of like a household name than many other games.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, there are games that are like very well known amongst gamers, but Angry Birds or Plants vs. Zombies, especially for some time, was like well known outside of this circle.
Oh yeah.
And so, right, it was cool to like meet random relatives, and they'll go like, oh yeah, I've heard of your game, and just like, yeah,
and yet they never played. They just it's in the culture now. Right. It's in the lexicon.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I guess now I know the one thing I'm the most like. So going back to the very first question, you asked me like what I'm most proud of. I think this like beyond just like what I described earlier is just like what makes Plants vs. Zombies so feel like like one of my most what aspect of Plants vs. Zombies I'm most proud of is probably, because this just all reminded me, it's probably like I've heard the term like cross-cutting, or like how, for instance, I put the game out and I sent the game to a bunch of my friends who I worked with at Blizzard, right? Hardcore gamers, like definitely gamers, right? And then meanwhile, I also sent the game to both my parents, who are the opposite of that. They don't really play games at all. And I got like, my friends at Blizzard would say like, oh yeah, this game is awesome. I played through it all the way. And like, it worked for them. And yet like, both my parents, who never play games, they loved it enough that they beat the game completely, which is kind of really unheard of. So I think that aspect of like that people from this whole spectrum could find something to appreciate about this game. Like, it was in some ways really a game for like just about everyone. I think that is the one thing that I feel like it's pretty unique about Plants vs. Zombies, and then that I'm the most proud of.
Well, talking about how expansive the game has become and how everyone's aware of it, and obviously, to make that quantity of content, requires a multitude of people. I'm curious, have you since the first Plants vs. Zombies game, have you had any involvement in anything else to do with the franchise or any of the other games?
So I had a huge amount of involvement with the first one, obviously. Since then, it's been very minimal. So what happened right afterward was like, and I keep going back to like, so what are my creative motivations, right? Like after Plants vs. Zombies, and partially because we spent that extra year on it, I feel like we really made it as good as we could have made it. And they asked me, oh, do you want to do a sequel? And I'm trying to think, like, I'm just thinking of like, what are some motivations of making a sequel? Like a lot of times it comes down to like, oh, I made the first game, but I had to ship it earlier than I really wanted to. I couldn't, there's these things I had that I wanted to do at the end that I couldn't. And in my case, I just didn't have any of that. And also in general, like the way I work is like I try to put myself in like, where are my skills most utilized, right? So I was really pushing for me to spin up a new IP to solve a new problem, like come up with brand new gameplay and do something really cool for the studio. So when they asked, like, obviously Plants vs. Zombies like really took off. It was really successful. And so they were looking for a crew to, you know, to make the sequel. And they offered for me to lead that. But, you know, talking with some of the studio heads at PopCap, they got the sense that, okay, you seem like you want to do something, come up with a new IP a lot more. And so, so my involvement was, I wouldn't say I was on the core team for anything past Plants vs. Zombies 1. However, especially in the very beginning, for instance, of Plants vs. Zombies 2, I was in a lot of meetings with the team. In some ways it's out of my hands, but especially in the beginning, I was very tied to like, I wanted it to succeed. So I tried to give the team any help I could with the time I had. Right. Yeah. So I remember some things I did were like, let me break down the challenges of making a sequel, like a game that's a sequel. Like, for instance, just one thing is like, you have to kind of account for like some people coming into this game are never going to have played Plants vs. Zombies 1, right? Meanwhile, some people, like a lot of people are. So like, how do you like find a medium where you're not boring the people who have already played Plants vs. Zombies 1, yet you're not like just leaving the people who haven't in the dust, kind of. So just like issues like that. And then the other thing I remember kind of steering them toward was they were looking for like, we tried a theme initially and that just didn't work out. And so we were looking for a new direction to take it. And I really kind of liked the whole time travel thing. So I suggested that. And just cause, I mean, if you want to just like, what it boils down to is it's just, I think it leads to funny zombies. Like if you have zombies from like all time periods, I think it's just like, you can do all kinds of wacky stuff. And just like, it seemed like kind of like a natural direction to take the sequel. Like just, this sequel is more expansive, it's bigger, it's got more variety. And so I remember suggesting that to the team, and then the designer seemed to really like latch onto it and kind of go, oh yeah, that would kind of like open up a lot of possibilities for us. So yeah, like in the beginning I was very I was more involved with Plants vs. Zombies 2, but then I did have my own projects I was working on. So especially as it was like kind of taking a life of its own, I became less and less involved with it. And then as far as like anything beyond that goes, like Garden Warfare actually got released without me knowing much about it at all, except just while I was at PopCap, I heard a rumor that they were making a Plants vs. Zombies first-person shooter, and I was like, "What?" Like that's like it was just like, it just seemed so wild to me.
Yeah, it was kind of surreal. Like I never thought this would be a first-person shooter. It's just like,
yeah, it was kind of one of the things you hear and you're like, "That's a joke, right?" Like it's like you can't do that. That's crazy, right? But but here we are, and there's now 2 Garden Warfares. So I haven't played a whole lot of either of them, mainly because just like first-person shooters, I've never really gotten to it as a genre. The only exception is Splatoon.
Okay.
Splatoon is just Splatoon is just sweet.
I'll tell you, I love Garden Warfare. It is really cool, and you can really tell that they kind of just what you set forth in the first game, like your fingerprints, your hallmarks, and all that kind of stuff have transferred over really well, because you still have Plants vs Zombies. You're not having Plants versus Plants or Zombies versus Zombies. You're still very true to that dichotomy right there, where it's separated, and then just like the kind of the humor and the characters. You're talking about how you like to have characters. I mean, these are real characters too that they have, and just incredible how the franchise has grown. And if you like Splatoon, I also play a lot of Splatoon. You might give it a shot. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I what I've seen of it, and it looks like, right, there's a lot of care put into it. What I love about it is, right, prior to, well, actually, we just happen to be talking about these two examples. Prior to Splatoon, Garden Warfare was one of the only games I can think of where it's like, okay, a young kid wants to play a first-person shooter, but everything else is like super too violent, too gritty. Like, what's really appropriate for them to play? And one of the things I love about Garden Warfare is it's like, oh yeah, this is a really lighthearted first-person shooter that you wouldn't feel really bad for letting your young kid play. And so I kind of love that about it. I kind of love, like, Splatoon's cool in the same way, I think. But right, Garden Warfare was first, right? So yeah, props to Garden Warfare for that.
Yeah, like it seems like the Plants vs Zombies, definitely is first in a lot of things, like the whole franchise as a whole. And so it's in a really good position. I think even still today, 10 years later in the video game industry, it's in a great position. And what other, if you don't play much Garden Warfare, I know that we talked a little bit about, do you play much of the original or number 2 or Heroes?
I definitely don't play a whole lot of the original.
It's kind of burned out.
Right. One of the things about being a game dev is like, you think, oh, like, yeah, I'll go back and play the games that I made. But it's like, really, you've just spent so many hours testing it and playing it already that it's pretty, like, when you're like looking at, oh, I'm going to play one of my own games versus, oh, I'm going to play like one of these other awesome millions of games that I haven't played yet. Like, it rarely happens that you'll choose one of your own games. So Plants vs Zombies 1, I really haven't played much since I released it. Plants vs Zombies 2, when it first came out, I played it for a stint. I went through the first few worlds and kind of like, oh yeah, it's really cool. Like, there's some things I really like about it. Like, plant food, I think, is really awesome. In that, one of the cool things about Plants vs Zombies is, like, you look forward to unlocking new plants, right? And Plants vs Zombies 2 just, like, it added that next other facet to that, where it's like, not only am I looking forward to the new plant, I'm also looking forward to just seeing what the plant food effect is. Like, and so I thought that was like one of the highlights of it for me. I eventually like fell off playing Plants vs Zombies 2, and as far as Heroes goes, like, yeah, I spent a longer time playing Heroes.
Oh, really?
Just because, right, I'm a pretty big fan of like that kind of gameplay. Like, just like card games in general are pretty cool to me. Yeah, I had a pretty enjoyable time playing Heroes. Maybe also because of what I mentioned first. It's like, it's a step removed from Plants vs Zombies 1, kind of, for me too. Like, so in playing Plants vs Zombies 2, yeah, some of the things were different, but a lot of the things were just like, a lot of the fundamental gameplay was the same as Plants vs Zombies 1. And so it's just like, I've spent so many hours playing Plants vs Zombies 1 that, like, I am kind of craving something a little bit more different, maybe, that too. So that might have been another factor. But yeah, I had a good time playing Heroes. You spent time playing Heroes and Plants vs Zombies 2 as well, right?
Oh yeah, all of them. And the thing is I of course started with Plants vs Zombies, and then when the sequel came out, Plants vs Zombies 2, and then the idea of the first-person shooter also kind of surprised me. I was like, really? They're gonna really make a from my perspective, I'm like, okay, did EA just buy this and now they're just gonna try to milk it for like all it's worth or something? but I mean, it was actually a really good game, and I was surprised by that, and so I got hooked on it. And then, when Heroes came out, I was playing a ton of Heroes. And, the thing about Heroes that I liked is that they kept the idea of lanes, and then they also still kept the Plants vs. Zombies dichotomy. I keep using the word dichotomy. I don't know if that's the right word. But
I don't know what word to use.
But they kept, the plants separate and the zombies separate. You never have a... It's so interesting to me that you have all these cards, and you'll never have Plants versus Plants, and you'll never have Zombies versus Zombies. So that's a really cool idea.
They kept the asymmetry, like it's always right. They have two different systems of playing.
Yeah,
right?
asymmetry.
I remember,
that's the word.
Yep. Yeah.
Which side is your favorite, like the plants or the zombie side?
So the boring answer would be like me saying something like, "Oh, it's like it's like my children. I can't pick one."
Yeah.
But I'm gonna pick one, and it's.
Are you flipping a coin?
It's right. I love them both, but it's zombies by a hair. If only because I feel like it's easier to make the zombies humorous.
Were they more fun to design?
Yeah, I think for the same reasons. Like, right, the zombies were more fun because they, you could just make like zombie bobsled team and do like stupid things like that. Where the plants kind of had their plants were like more prone for like making puns out of the names, which I think, okay, so people look at Plants vs. Zombies and then they go, oh, George must really like puns a lot. When in reality, I like really good puns. I'm not that big on puns, but their functionality in Plants vs. Zombies was that I am a big fan of elegance or being able to do a lot with just a little space. And so something like the walnut, right? Like,
oh yeah,
we can tell you within just basically one word, like I guess it's a hyphenated word. We can tell you within like one word that it's a walnut, like the nut, which is has a hard shell, so it's gonna. And we can also throw the word wall in there because you are putting a wall down to block off the zombies from your plants. So yes, puns are sort of okay in my book. I'm not the biggest fan of them, but I love that they let me communicate so much in so little space. So that's right. So right, plants are more pun prone. I don't think there's a whole lot of zombie puns. Zombies are usually just like zombie and then their occupation or what they did in their past life, right? That is the formula for naming a zombie, I think.
Do you have a favorite zombie?
Yeah, my favorite. Okay, I think my favorite zombie changes. I feel today it's the Gargantuar. I just I think all the components combined, like the fact that he's got this imp on his shoulder that he throws off, and I love the little laugh he does, and the Gargantuar is like holding one of three like kind of ridiculous things in his hand. Like he's either holding, I think the telephone pole is the normal thing, and then once in a while he has like a duck crossing sign, which I think is super funny, and then I guess he can hold a zombie. I was looking through my my notes and I found, here's a little special tidbit for your listeners. All right.
Ooh, so perfect.
Right, as we know, there are 3 things that Gargantuar can hold. There are 2 things that I found in my notes that we considered also adding, but we didn't. The first one is I wrote down, like, I don't know what this exactly means. I wrote down a leash with a chihuahua tied to it or something like that. Okay, so I guess I'm a little sad we didn't do that, but it's also kind of like, what did I mean when I wrote this? And then the other one was a phone booth with the person still inside. So I think, right.
That would have been a humorous sight.
So yeah, right. And for all those reasons, that is why the Gargantuar is my favorite. The Gargantuar is great.
Awesome. The tidbits are good. Maybe like the wiki will get updated or something, and the source
Yes.
will be my video.
Yes, right. The source will be you. Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Well,
Zach, what is your favorite zombie?
Oh man, I should have expected you would turn it around on me.
Well, you can also think about it for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, while I think about that, let's go ahead and get plants out of the way. Do you have a favorite plant?
Can I say 2 favorite plants? I have 2 favorite plants.
Yes.
The one I usually say is the squash, because I'm all about the elegance, many things. So the squash says what kind of plant he is, and it also tells you what his purpose is at the same time.
Okay,
His
yeah. So
purpose is
the
to
one word
squash.
is a squash, and he squashes.
Yeah, and I just kind of like that was one of the ones I attribute more to Rich. So like Rich kind of came up with the expression on the squash's face more, and I really like that expression too. So right, there's just a lot of things I like about the squash. My other one that I sometimes say is the tall nut. I really like the tall nut. I really like that he's sitting there. He's got kind of like a little frown, and then he's so stoic, right? And he's getting munched on by zombies, and then he just like sheds this single tear, like while maintaining that stoic face. So
very noble.
Yeah, those are my top 2.
I think for me, so one of the questions I have here is definitely going to focus on mushrooms, but I think for me, I like the hypno shroom. I like the idea for the plant side. I like the idea of being able to kind of like take control of a zombie, and I like the idea of the mushrooms in general, because when you think of plants, you don't necessarily think mushrooms, but I like that the mushrooms are included, and I'll ask you about that in a second. But
right,
but
mushrooms, right? If we're gonna get technical,
yeah,
which I did think of,
and then
mushrooms are not plants.
For the zombie, man. So what I've done is I pulled up the almanac in the first game to make sure I didn't accidentally get confused with the second game. So
yeah, it can also be from one of the later ones too. And
well, no, I'm gonna stick to the first because
okay.
I always like the Jack in the Box zombie. I don't know if he's my favorite, but I just liked his characterization and the way that he looks. And
it can be top 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My top 3 zombies.
Yeah, it can. I mean, as long as Jack in the Box is one of your top 3, I think that's cool too. Like, yeah, Jack in the Box. He's got that straight jacket on. He's just got that crazed look on his face. Like, right. You have to wonder what he was at in his past life. Like, why did he have a Jack in the Box in his hand?
And
yeah,
I might be wrong, but I don't think he made it into the second game. I don't think. But I do like him. And then
yeah, he had a lot of personality.
From a frustration standpoint, the newspaper zombie is like one of the ones where it's like, oh no, like I have to go up against a newspaper zombie because he's kind of tough initially at least, and then like he just runs at you. And so if you trigger him, he's kind of cool because he kind of has different phases. It's like if you trigger him, then he starts running and like, oh no. And then you were talking about earlier about how they're kind of slow. Well, this one can really go at you. So that one's kind of another favorite. Now I was looking here at the dancing zombie, and I remember when it used to be like I guess it was still called the dancing zombie, but it was a Michael Jackson based design. And I was wondering if
you were one of the first to get
yeah. Well, I was wondering if you
when the getting was cool and you could still play against Michael Jackson zombie. Right?
Well, what was his name? Was it still Dancing Zombie?
It was still Dancing Zombie. Like for obvious reasons, we never said this is Michael Jackson.
Yeah, Michael Jackson zombie.
But yeah, I thought it was a cool homage, and we made the backup dancers very 80s and made them do the Thriller dance. Right? We painstakingly made them do the Thriller dance, and we thought it would be a cool like parody / homage because that was such a cool music video.
So do you miss the fact that he's no longer in the game?
I definitely miss. So I am personally more of a fan of the 80s than the 70s. I feel like the new dancing zombies, while cool, they went back a decade to the 70s, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely miss the original. Like, I love that Thriller dance. I think it's hilarious. So I was so glad to include it. So yeah, we unfortunately got what was pretty much a cease and desist letter from Michael Jackson's estate after he passed on. And I don't know. I really feel like, so I've heard things about like Michael Jackson, you know, well, first of all, he was in his own video game. He was in like Moonwalker. I heard he really liked Sonic the Hedgehog also. I don't know. I feel like if it wasn't his estate, if it was just like, if he had still been alive by the time Plants vs. Zombies came out, I feel like he might have given us the okay, like just like, yeah, that's cool. You know, you can keep my likeness in your game. Yeah. But
well, they have
yeah, it's a shame.
Well, the Dancing Zombie, I mean, they kind of took that design and they really expanded on it, and he's made appearances, I guess, as Electric Boogaloo and Heroes, and then he's also been in Garden Warfare games as well. So. He's doing good on his own, but yeah, we will miss the original design and look of the original Dancing Zombie, I think.
Yes, he will be missed. It's less timeless if Michael Jackson's likeness is showing up in all these later Plants vs. Zombies games, so I guess I can appreciate that it's like it's something we can call ours a little bit more. Like it's the way the new Dancing Zombie looks, right? So yeah, it was a pretty great redesign. All the same, like even though I am attached to the original, right? We had to do that redesign in like 48 hours too. So I think everyone involved could pat themselves on the back because I think they did a really great job.
This question has been this is like the biggest question I have. Like this is the one I'm really curious about because the mushrooms.
Here we go.
Like I know that some people are like, I'm a huge fan of the mushroom class, or not the class, but the mushroom genre or whatever of plants.
Yeah.
And
mushrooms are great. Mushrooms are great.
Well, thank you. I'm a huge fan, and one thing about the Garden Warfare games is that they've taken a lot of different plants, like the pea shooter. They made a character. They made they made the corn into a character, and all sorts of stuff. They made the chomper into a character. But there are all of these mushrooms available, and they haven't made a single mushroom into one of the playable class characters. And so I keep like lobbying them. I'm like, please, like add a mushroom class. And they didn't do it for the second game. And whatever game they're working on now, I hope they do that for like whatever shooter game they're working on now. But I'm curious because a lot of people say, well, mushrooms aren't plants anyway. And so I'm curious, how come mushrooms got mixed in with the plants?
I sometimes look at like when I make games, like, let's not look at like technically what things are. Let's look at more like, I don't know, just a analogy is like, how would a little kid think of this or something like that, right? Like, yeah. And I feel like under that analogy, like mushrooms stay still, they grow, they are honorary plants. They can definitely like hang out in the plant. I don't want to say kingdom. I don't think they're in the same kingdom. You're right. They can hang out in the plant like umbrella, right? Like
ecosystem.
It's yeah. One thing I wanted to do was kind of after you played for a bit, kind of turn things on its head, like kind of give you a new kind of challenge, just to add in some variety. So one thing I thought is, what if it became nighttime and you don't have sun anymore, right? Yeah. How does that change everything? So I really needed something that would thrive at night, and it's not necessarily that mushrooms like are nocturnal or anything like that. It's just like when you think of mushrooms, sometimes you think, they're in like dark, damp places, they grow there or something like that. So I think some of us associate mushrooms with like a little bit more night. Like we definitely don't associate plants with nighttime. Right? Because they need sun, right? And so plants are very day. Like it was important that you could easily identify this whole new class of things, right? So what's something that fits that category? Well, mushrooms. Like if we make all these things mushrooms, then it's something that can be easily like delineated. Like like this is a plant, this is a mushroom. Like, and so all mushrooms are awake at night, and and they function just fine. So I think the thing with mushrooms is like they're slightly overpowered, right? They're all like, or undercosted, I guess I should say. Like if the puff shroom was a plant, it would never be 0 cost.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so, right, it's the mushrooms are taking into account that you're getting less sun overall, so your economy is going to be like stunted. So everything's like a cheaper version of what it is. Like the sun shroom is, 25 gold or 25 sun. So I'm sorry. So right, they're all undercosted. And then, but yet, when you get back to the next level, which is daytime again, they all fall asleep. And to answer your earlier question, I think maybe that's why they haven't gone on. Maybe that is one of the reasons why they haven't added a mushroom yet. Unless they could make a joke out of it and have it just kind of occasionally fall asleep in the day. Right? 'Cause,
that would be funny.
Yeah,
like you're just
right.
playing and you're a
Right.
really strong
Just-
character, but you have this downtime that you have to take.
Right. It just occasionally just nods off. So yeah, that might be a reason, or I don't know. I don't know why, really. Yeah, it's because some mushrooms are really, right, they've got to like the Doom Shroom will be cool to play as, right? Or
Yes.
I'm with you though. I want mushroom rights and representation in the future games.
All right. Well, it's official.
Right.
It's on
Thank
the
you for
record.
bringing this to my attention. Right, let's make some change happen.
Well, now, just scrolling through here, just a brief question I just now came up with. The Grave Buster, what kind of plant is he?
So a lot of people ask me that, and I can explain my initial logic. I do know that the Grave Buster was changed for Plants vs. Zombies 2. Maybe some of the people thought of this. So the thing I keep pressing on, when I design games, is if I can convey something with a visual, right? If I need no words to explain a concept, that is always the best. If a zombie shows up on screen and you could guess what it does before it even actually does its thing, that is the absolute best. It just simply comes down to, I made the Grave Buster kind of resemble a grave itself, to kind of it's the same color. It's supposed to be like a rocky texture, but yet it still has some fronds coming out of its top to show that it is actually a plant. It's like a very dense rock-like plant, which I think there's a few, I've seen a recent picture of a fungus that kind of looks like a rock. But anyway, the most importantly, I wanted you to consciously or subconsciously make the association that this thing that kind of looks in the shape like a gravestone-ish, or the same texture, goes with the gravestone somehow. And I know that's a little counterintuitive, why is it eating itself, its own kind, I guess, but I wanted you to look at it and kind of get that visual association. So that's why the Grave Buster isn't really any based on any real plant in the world or anything like that. But that was the original. That's the conception. That's why it looks like the way it does originally. And yeah.
Well, I like that answer, because it does make sense when you see it. It's gray, it goes with the graves, and it's called Grave Buster. You just know everything.
Yeah, right. We went all out. We named it something very direct. By the time you get that plant, none of your plants have done anything like that prior to that, right? So all of your plants either gave you sun or shot stuff or blocked things. There weren't any that kind of munched on a grave, right? So so I felt like we had to be very err on the side of okay, let's make sure you know what this does as much as possible. So we named it very directly. We didn't obscure what its function was. We just said, what does it do? It busts graves. Okay. But that's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that. I'm glad I got to talk about the Grave Buster a little bit.
Well, I just now saw it. I just now was scrolling through the pictures and stuff. I was like, the Grave Buster, because he's kind of
is the Grave Buster, right?
Well, also, this is something that I noticed before the interview. But Dr. Zomboss, his name is Edgar George Zomboss, and your name is George.
My name is George. So it seems it might seem like I named it after myself. And you might think that because this is not my only game that I made where the main bad guy is named George.
Ooh.
So
what are you telling us?
Let's go way back to my very beginnings, my very first game that no one knows about. It was a game called Wrath of the Gopher, where you played as a gopher destroying a cabbage patch that belonged to a farmer. Okay.
Okay.
This is basically my very first game. I was just kind of learning how to program and everything. And it came time to name that. So what would happen is you would try to eat as many cabbages as you could, and then the farmer would eventually like show up and just like clonk you in the head with a shovel, and then you would lose. Okay, so it came time to name that farmer, and I named him George. But that was because, as my parents told me, George means farmer.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
And I think Greek or something like that. So I am not a very like vain, or not vain. Like I don't put myself into games just because. It just seemed appropriate, because I also named the gopher Hamilton because the game mechanic was you were doing something in mathematics called the Hamilton path, basically, where you traverse a bunch of nodes and you don't repeat the same. Anyway, it's like my own little secret Easter eggs that I throw in there for various reasons. I didn't just name the farmer George because I'm named George, for instance, right?
Okay.
So now fast forward to Plants vs. Zombies. Edgar George Zomboss was not named by me. It was named by the writer for Plants vs. Zombies, Steve Notley. So that was not my doing. I didn't put my own name into the game. But
okay.
I feel like George does sound like kind of like an more old-fashioned name, or like a name of. It's a great middle name for a zombie overlord boss character. And so once Steve Notley put it in there, I was like, yeah, that works for me, even though people are going to think that I named him myself. But right. It seemed pretty perfect, so I just left it.
Okay, so I have one more Plants vs. Zombies question. Then we're going to kind of shift focus to kind of the stuff that's been going on now. Like, we're talking about OCTOGEDDON and things like that. But
okay.
The question I have is if you could, I mean, this is a broad question too. So, but if you could wave a magic wand, where would you guide the Plants vs. Zombies franchise in the next 10 years?
Ooh, okay.
I don't know. This is a really broad question.
Whoa. Yeah. All right. So as we talked about earlier, we got to keep coming out with sequels till we hit 18, right? So we need Plants vs. Zombies 18. That's where we're headed. No,
it's like a game every few months.
Okay. I'll talk about what I would love to play.
Okay. That sounds interesting.
Right. In some ways, I would love to play a good old Plants vs. Zombies sequel designed by someone else, so I get surprised by it, that doesn't have like a business model, like that is just I pay for it and I get to just play it. Like that is what I would love. That is what I would love to play. I think I would have a lot of fun doing that. I'd probably, for better or worse, wave my magic wand and make that happen.
Yeah.
But that is, just because that's what I would want to play. And then while I'm continuing to wave the wand, like we talked about earlier, it'd be cool to see like Plants vs. Zombies in some other in other game genres. Although Plants vs. Zombies was designed, like the characters were chosen for the tower defense genre, right? Like plants are perfect towers for me to give personality to, and zombies are perfect like antagonists that can be silly and can walk really slowly so you can strategize and plant your plants. One of the things I was wondering if I was going to be like weirded out by is like in Garden Warfare, all the plants move, right? Like they all have kind of essentially legs and they're running around. Right. So once that's kind of like done, you could do like an action RPG or a roguelike featuring the plants, as long as you've like already established they can move around and stuff. But it's like, but I would wave my wand generally saying, oh, I want to see, cool new genres with these same characters too at the same time. But most, I wave my first wave with, I just want a classic new Plants vs. Zombies game, something I can just sit down and enjoy and not worry about feeling like, oh, should I pay for this? Should I pay money for this upgrade? Or I just want to play the game as a designer meant for me to play it.
Without having to worry about how it's monetized. It's just one initial monetization.
Right. I never really feel good in any of those games when I get whatever suckered into buying the power up. I don't know, like I feel like I sort of cheated in some ways. I'd rather like pay up front and then earn without feeling like I broke any of the systems really. So I would love to play that.
I mean, I know like the landscape's totally different now than it was 10 years ago, but it's so hard to find games that are designed, like that, like especially on mobile platforms.
Mm-hmm. That is really unfortunate. Like, yeah, I was mentioning earlier, like in I guess it's the golden age now of iPhone App Store. Like there were a lot of games like that you could play, and I just feel like and back then I just really loved kind of going on the App Store, seeing what cool new games there were, and downloading a bunch of them, buying a bunch of them, and just playing them on my phone. I just find myself doing that a lot less these days. I like look elsewhere for the games I'm playing now.
I never had an iPhone. I had the iPod Touch, and then I had an iPad. But when the games were first coming out, they were like $1, $2, 99 cents or whatever. And to me, I was like, wow, that's amazing, because I used to go into like an arcade and drop, $10, $20 and just walk away with nothing. so just the idea that I could own like all these games for so cheap was awesome. And then I guess over time that proved even $1 is like such a high barrier of entry for a lot of players.
$1's too much. It's got to be free.
Yeah, so it's like, man, I as a player, I wish I could just buy the game and be done. But then like I really sympathize with the developers who like they can't even, like, just making it $1 is just too much. Like the players won't even play it if it's just $1.
Yeah, I so as someone who's like following the charts at that time, I wonder if things would have been different. So I think, I'm not sure of all this history, but if I remember right, at some point the Apple App Store had a top charts, right? And naturally you want to get on those top charts, but the charts didn't reflect like how much total dollar value at the time your game was making. It was just how many units sold, right? And so it totally made sense to just like price your game at $1, which was I think the lowest you could price it at the time, and just sell as many copies at $1 to get on the top of the charts, because once you're on the top of the charts, you're going to sell more. When I think about it, it makes me a little sad. At least I still have my Switch, or right, I still have some dope games on on the PC that I've been playing, and yeah.
Well, so I had all these questions about PvZ, and we spent a considerable amount of time on those. And I kind of want to transition, we're 10 years later, 10-year anniversary. I kind of want to transition now to what's been going on these past 10 years. We were just talking kind of about the monetization. I'll kind of skip to this one. How do you think the industry is different now, 10 years later, than when you were doing PvZ? And, either AAA or indie, or, what's changed? Anything surprising? Anything good or bad, or just ugly, so to speak? We talking about the monetization thing. I mean, maybe some of that is fits in with that category. But just what are your experiences as someone who's been a game developer for so long?
So I'll start with the good, since I like starting with good things.
Yeah.
I think like there are so many different types of games out there that you can express yourself in so many different ways. Like at one point, games were all about, can you, it's challenging your reflexes or your strategic mind. Now there's like, games that let you express creativity. There's like you can, build your own worlds in Minecraft, for instance, or like I even heard there's this game that's like kind of taken some of my coworkers like by storm, where it's like it's called Love Nikki, and you just dress up in like these like awesome outfits, and you kind of like do these battles. Like it's like dress up in your best winter outfit, and then you do battles that way. It's totally like, I mean, I feel like games like this would be a lot more unheard of 10 years ago, and so I just love that now, more than ever, there's all kinds of games that let you like experience different things and let you express yourself in different ways, and also with that it brings like a bigger audience, like a more diverse audience than ever before. Like there's nowadays, like there's so many different people from different walks of life playing games. Whereas I do remember a time when it's just like one specific like type of person. That's the person that plays games, and always hoping that, I wish games were more universally, like, I wish other people could see what's so cool about games that I see. Like, I remember wishing that, and it's just so cool now to like having games be so ubiquitous, and just
there's something for everyone, and everyone can be a gamer because of that.
Yeah. So that's the good.
And we don't have to dwell on the bad or anything.
Yeah, the not so good. I don't know. It's like this, right? As a result of that, I think, right, games is just. I remember the feeling of like what it was to be an indie developer was very different than it is nowadays. Like nowadays, it feels like you're one of a whole slew of indie developers that are like, because just like if you look at how many games are put on the App Store every day, like a lot of those are made by indie developers, right? Like, or how many games show up on Steam every day. Like, speaking like from my skill set, which is just making the games, I don't really excel in all the other parts of all the business side of things. So I feel like more so before, if you were an indie developer, you could make a great game, it would get word of mouth, and a great game would kind of, in some more so like just kind of sell itself. Whereas there's a lot of people making games now. So I feel like pushing through the noise is just a lot more difficult these days. I think I mentioned some of the other ways that, games have changed, where just, right, like I look at what I'm playing on my phone these days, it's just not the same as the stuff I was playing 10 years ago. Like I've kind of missed that time a little bit. Just I'm not really that interested in, like, I feel like the phone I would love to play more games on my phone, but there's just a whole lot of timer based, like you just wait for things to happen unless you want to pay something to speed it up. There's just a lot of that kind of archetype, which just really not really for me. And so and that's just a result of those games just do really well on the App Store. Like, for whatever, like there are enough people out there that pay money for these games or pay money within these games that they're just super successful, and that's just pushing out a lot of the games I'd want to play on mobile. So,
well, you've kind of now the viewers probably know this. I hope they know this, but you made the game OCTOGEDDON, and you kind of bucked that trend. Yeah,
that's my voice, by the way. Like, I know
it is
the game, but in the title screen, that is me. Right. We're again a really small team, so we like. Who's gonna do the voice acting? I don't know. I guess I'll do it.
Well, what I liked about the game is that these things that you kind of say are the downside of the current industry is that you've kind of bucked the trend. OCTOGEDDON doesn't have any microtransactions. It doesn't, at least as far as I know, and it also
none at all.
And it also is just one of the type of games that you pay up front, and you can be engaged with it for as long as possible, and it's an indie game, and it's was released on the PC, and it's very fun. It has great reviews. Everyone who saw it on my channel seemed to really like it, and people have played it.
I did watch you play it. That was really enjoyable. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the game. But looking back. So it seems it's interesting that since you bucked the trends. I mean, was the development of OCTOGEDDON very similar to what your development style was like 10 years ago, or was it a different process, or what all went into
in some
OCTOGEDDON?
ways it was very similar. Like, I think what it boils down to is like to some extent I don't think I really could make a game that I wouldn't want to play, right? Like so that is kind of partially the reason why OCTOGEDDON is what it is. Like, it is a pay up front, just I want to create the best experience I can for you, and you just go through the game without worrying about pulling out your wallet at any point. Like, that is what I wanted to focus on, because I think that is what I want to play more of too. So yeah, to some extent, I'm a very like, I design games that I would want to play. I'm not as great at designing games that I don't want to play.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's just right. I think I know that about myself. So that is the kind of game I made.
I saw the tweet earlier today, but it's coming out for the Switch, which is going to open it up to a whole new group of players. And
yeah,
what date is that?
OCTOGEDDon coming to a Switch near you on May 16th.
So very soon. Very soon. We should have started the interview with that so that everyone knows.
Yeah. So I'm super excited about this. I do think like having tested it a bunch on the Switch, I think it's a really great platform for it. You are going to, as you fight these immense robot bosses, you're going to feel the rumble of them stomping everywhere, and as they try to slam, huge projectiles at you. And so yeah, it just feels really at home on the Switch. So very excited to bring it out for the Switch finally, because just one reason being I am just a Nintendo fan through and through. Like,
yes.
I am just so happy that I can say, oh yeah, one of my games has come out for a Nintendo console. That is just so cool to me. That will never get old. That's just like so cool.
I also now I'm pretty sure that this is not a secret. I saw this on Twitter, but you're also working on Magic the Gathering, right?
I am.
What can you tell us about that? Because that's exciting.
I can tell you that it's a dream come true.
Oh, really?
No. Well, so yeah. So right, for your viewers who maybe don't know, I love Magic the Gathering. I've been playing for most of my life. Yeah, it's just one of the best games. Like I just spent so much time playing it. It's just there's just so much Magic has given to me that middle of last year, I got basically offered a chance to work at Wizards of the Coast, the people who make Magic. I got offered a 6-month stint to work here. And so,
nice.
Yeah. So it's like, on one hand, I feel like, I think I mentioned a little bit before, like, I think I work best in small teams, and, I feel like I still have a lot to say, a lot of things I want to bring to the video game world. So on one hand, this is kind of a dream job, like something I've always wanted to do. But on the other hand, like, I knew I want to get back to doing what I was doing before. And so the 6-month gig is really perfect for that. It lets me like, work on Magic, this game I love, for some amount of time. Try to, while I'm there, offer everything I can, just like, can I want to make Magic better this way or that way. Like, just do all that, do that as much as I can. And then after all that's done, I would go back to doing what I feel like my calling is, which is making games like Plants vs. Zombies and OCTOGEDDON. So yeah, I'm just currently in the middle of that. Like I said, 6 months. I started in July last year, and it's been a blast. I've not regretted any of it. They've been treating me awesomely there, and it's just been super cool to work on Magic itself. And so much so that I've kind of extended it to a full year.
Oh.
However, that's the year is about to that year is about to end, and I am going to be going back to making my weird, wacky, fun indie games.
Well, that sounds awesome, because we love your games. And is there anything that you can tell us, anything else going on in your life that you'd like to tell us about, or any games that you would like to tell us about, or even the Magic stuff? When will we see the results of your year there?
Yeah, so I guess I can just really quickly tell you what's pretty interesting about working on Magic is that I made Plants vs. Zombies, OCTOGEDDON. It was very different experience in that I am devoting 100% of my attention to just this one project, right? While I'm working on Plants vs. Zombies, I am not working on anything else. So I get to Wizards, and they're like, here are 3 different things you can be working on, and they're all in 3 different phases of doneness. You're gonna have to like kind of put on a different hat for each one of these and think about it like think about it very early on for this set, and then now you think of it like the midway through the process for this set, and this is all within one day. Like I have to cycle through these every day, right? And so that was a trip, right? Like going from being able to just like focus on one thing at what, and kind of shift, like just being present in the what stage of it is versus like, now I'm juggling like 3 things, and they're all in different phases of doneness, so you have to kind of think of them all 3 in different ways, right? Because it'd be one thing to like work on 3 things and they're all midway done, and so therefore you can kind of like view them all through that lens. But nope, you gotta put on a different hat for each of these projects. And so that's just been really interesting. I know some people really like working this way, and I think I can hang, but it's been very different from what I've been doing before.
Yeah.
And so so the way Magic sets kind of like release, the stuff that I've been doing here won't show up till maybe like I think the earliest of it is like maybe a year from when we're talking right now, so something like that. So
okay.
Yeah, we'll see it, but it just won't be for
maybe?
a little bit. Yeah, so 2020. Look out for some cool stuff that George Fan has helped design.
Well, I'm sure we'll get more details closer to the release date. I'm excited about that. I played Magic growing up and a little bit in my adulthood, and I kind of flirt with it off and on, and so I that might be the perfect time for me to get back into it. So
yeah, 2020 Zack returns to Magic.
Well, is OCTOGEDDON done? Any other plans for OCTOGEDDON or anything like that, or is it done onto the next project?
Are we doing OCTOGEDDON 2, or are we making an expansion for it? There are currently no plans for that. I do think there's a good chance the very next thing I'm working on is going to be something new. Kind of, yeah. I just like I like tackling new challenges each time I start something, right?
Yeah.
Like that's speaking with other developers, people have different points, which is their favorite phase of the game creation process. Mine is definitely the very beginning, where you're just like, it's wide open. You're just like coming up with, you're trying to like, see if this works out, or I have this pretty strange idea. Is this gonna fly? Like that kind of stuff is what I live for. And so so I have a tendency to start new projects versus iterate off of like something that's been done already, I guess you could say.
Well, yeah. And what's funny is that with all the way that this interview has gone, it's kind of come full circle, because we kind of started talking about that. That's how you work. That's your workflow. And so coming back now to 10 years later, you still got the same workflow, wanting to be creative, do something original, and so moving on to something new and brighter, futures. Not just not gonna just keep doing the same thing over and over, so we can look forward to something truly new and amazing.
And in some ways I feel like that is what that's what I want to do the most, but on the other end, I feel like that is how I could contribute the most too. Like I feel like that is, if I have other really cool things to offer the world, like that is how that is how I can contribute them the most, is coming up with new stuff like that.
And that, and also that might be why Magic the Gathering is a dream job, is because if you think about, I read in some interviews and wiki stuff that, Plants vs. Zombies, you drew some inspiration from Magic the Gathering. And so now to be actually working on it, I mean, does that just feel like just a full circle? Like, I don't know what to call it, but it's like the...
Right. Plants vs. Zombies at one point was a lot a lot closer to what Magic is. Like if you'll, so right, Plants vs Zombies was still really kind of like becoming what it was. Like there were still a lot of things up in the air. For instance, that like there's a recharge on every plant. You plant a walnut, you have to wait a while before you can plant another walnut, right? That wasn't the case in the very beginning. Like I was kind of obsessed with Magic, and so I was like, maybe I can make a game where so here's why all the plants in Plants vs Zombies are seed packets, right? Because I wanted them to be something you could kind of stack up in sort of a deck you could kind of imagine that happening, and then you would shuffle that deck, and you would the game would draw the top card of that deck and send it down this conveyor belt, right? So you didn't have, instead of picking 6 or 7 plants to choose, like that you could always have access to, you would only have access to these select few plants that came off of the top of the seed packet deck that were like slowly coming down the conveyor belt, and then you'd still have to pay the sun for them, and then you could plant them. And at the beginning of each level, you would kind of like determine the ratios of how many sunflowers were in your deck. Like you'd click the sunflower twice, so you could put 20% sunflowers in your deck, and then you click the pea shooter once, so you could put 10% pea shooters in your deck. So that was my like, oh, maybe it'd be cool to infuse some of like, collectible card game kind of design into a tower defense game, right? Like I thought maybe the merging of the two would be really cool, but in practice, like that screen where you're kind of like clicking each sunflower twice, like what happens if you click the sunflower no times? Then you just can't play, right? Like if you have 0% sunflowers in your deck, there was just too much opportunity for kind of like messing up that ratio, I feel like. And this was PopCap. We are kind of looking to make games that are more suitable for a wider audience, and so I was like, then I kind of like looked at it again, and I'm like, can I sort of get the same feel of like, certain things are scarce with just like making their cooldowns longer. So for instance, the cherry bomb, it costs 150 and you can use it, but you have to wait a while before you can use it again. That kind of feels a little bit like, maybe this deck has 10% cherry bomb because they're pretty scarce. They come pretty rarely. And so after trying it that way, that made the new way and the way we all know it, that made a lot more sense. But right, at one point, Plants vs Zombies was a lot closer to Magic the Gathering. And right, as you know, there's some remnants of it because we left the conveyor belt in the game as like, a special, right. So that is kind of like just because we thought like, there's, it's paying. We had that in the game already, and we're like, it could be cool if things were just coming down a conveyor belt. And so that is why the conveyor belt levels are in the game. It's from the remnants of the great Magic the Gathering experiment of 2006 or something.
Well, someone update the Wikipedia because that's new info.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's why they're seed packets. Now you know that too. Bloom and Doom Company. I think the seed packets say like Bloom and Doom Company packets, seed packets, or something like that.
Well, goodness, this has just been a wealth of information. I thank you so much, George, for doing this interview. This is, I wrote out a bunch of questions. I never expected to get this much information, so thank you so much.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. Like just going back down memory lane.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I know that my viewers are going to love this, and your fans are going to love this. And I came up with a great name for your fan base if you don't have one already. It's called the George Fans. The George Fans.
Oh wow, yeah, right. It's just just shorten it. Just cut out the third word. So yeah, really quick. Like I was very excited to meet the lead designer of Magic. Just a little quick aside. One of the jokes he had for me, because he's also a fan of my work, so he's like, I'm a George fan, right? So I got to say to him, well, that makes me a George fan. So that was a pretty
Well, you can have that. It's free of charge. George Fans is the name of your
if
fan
I'm
base.
ever like, oh, dang, what am I gonna call my fan base? I'll think of you, Zach, and this wonderful name you came up with me.
Well, it ties into the simplicity of you're naming the plants, simple and it gets to the point.
I love when things are simple and convey a lot. That's one of the best things. So you know what I like. You know what I like.
Well, thank you again so much for your time. You're very generous.
Thanks for doing this.
And this is going to make hopefully a great interview that people are going to want to see. And let me know, the viewers out there who are watching, let us know in the comments if you would, what you thought, and if you have any other questions. I'm sure we covered a lot, but I mean, I could have probably kept going, but we've been doing this for a while, and I thank you so much for your time. And thanks for making such a great game, and thanks for helping me celebrate the 10th anniversary of Plants vs. Zombies.
Likewise. Thanks a lot, Zach. That was awesome.